Good evening, everyone. On behalf of VisioNxt, Kaustav and I welcome you, Rajeev, to our fireside chat series with experts from across domains on data versus desire as an area. To our viewers, let me introduce Rajeev. Rajeev is a hands-on technologist with 20 years of experience. More than 14 years have been spent developing large-scale systems for two of the Fortune 100 companies in financial service domain. He has performed varying roles such as technical lead, technical architect, solution architect, enterprise architect, and chief architect. The experience involves custom software development using proprietary stack, open source stack, and a hybrid approach as opposed to buy and integrate. He is presently a part of artificial intelligence program in TCS, Enterprise Intelligent Automation Unit. And exactly what his roles are, exactly what his journey has been. Rajeev, I would like you to say it in your own words, your journey of last so many years where you moved into this arena completely.
Yeah, sure. So I started my journey from TCS after passing out my master's from IIT Madras, So started with my career in mainframes, predominantly working in BFSI domain. So developing software for the BFSI domain in mainframes. Then slowly started moving into open systems, like using programming languages like Smalltalk and all, which probably most of the people have not worked with. So that journey took me further into enterprise architecture and enterprise software, like scanning with image fast technologies. How large scale organizations deal with papers that they receive. Even though we say that paper should be eliminated, it's a very large goal. It's like a 20 to 30 year goal. Right. People think that it can happen in 5 years. It's not simple in a large organization. So then I moved to developing, probably was part of a team which first developed the private cloud, So using VMware stack, then I started moving towards AI. So I have constantly moved every 4 or 5 years to keep myself, up to date on what's happening. So now I am in AI. I don't know what will be tomorrow, That's a brief journey across. And my domains predominantly has been BFSI. So that involves banking and insurance, but I do have worked with enterprises in other units like life sciences and others, because domain knowledge is pretty important in any IT field. It's not only technology. There are 4 areas that defines a person. Actually, it's actually technology, engineering. How do you build large scale systems? Then research, and then domain. So domain is one of the fundamental fields which you should be pretty good at. So when you talk about fashion, that is your domain of experience, Whereas in my case, it's about predominantly BFSI, which involves credit cards, debit cards, mortgages, consumer loans, equity and stuff like that. Actually, so that's my journey across.
So that's interesting you said that, because that's one of the very important points where we wanted to bring you on board, because the last few conversations we've had are from the creative domain. You know what VisionNxt is about, Rajeev. To our viewers, Rajeev is also an external expert giving us advice on our AI integration into creating a model. Just a quick kind of a zap through. We are what VisionNxt is about. It's we are working towards creating an AI-enabled forecasting system, fashion forecasting system for India. And so that is where Rajeev comes in. So Rajeev, we are from, like you said, are from the creative domain. And in this creative domain, while we believed in, and we do believe that the qualitative aspect of consumer, where the desire or where the inherent desire to buy, to create, to possess is the driving force, But in the market that we are in today, data is assumingly and kind of informing a very important role there. So looking from the world of data, looking from the lens of data, how do you see data will be enabling the creative world?
Yeah, so obviously, I see technology to be an enabler, irrespective of whether it is fashion or any domain per se. Technology is an enabler to basically ensure that you can reach more people, you can actually understand them better, because personalization is a very, very important aspect. I'm assuming fashion also, actually, you need to be very clear on personalization, which is today technology is allowing us. Today, we are even talking about hyper personalization, where the segment is of one. Actually, segment is no more a group, so we are trying to see how targeting of people can be done with data, and I think it's happening, but it will happen because every individual has their own preferences, so understanding that preference and recommending or guiding them to what they like is actually something that data can do. Actually, today we do have the capability to do that, to understand my preferences, to understand what I like, and do I have any time differences also, because at times our preference also change, so to understand that, I think that's where data really comes into picture. Today we don't get to that level of hyper personalization in fashion, but I am thinking that is where the future is heading to. For example, like, if I like a shirt or something, a certain type of shirt, today we have visual search possible, so visual search is a very, very important tool, because I let us say I like the shirt, there is no other way you can search for it. You can't type like I need a blue shirt, you will get 1,000 options, whereas today with visual searches and all, if I have a photo, I can really use that photo to tell this is more or less what I like about, and today it is very well possible actually to do something like that in today's capabilities. So I believe data will guide us, in terms of reaching out to each and every customer the way he or she wants to be,
Right. I think that's a very well-spoken aspect of data. Also, Rajeev, if you, we were discussing, if you remember, we were discussing a few days back. But interestingly, I wanted to add here is that it's also very paradoxical that we talk about fashion and we talk about personalization, because the definition of fashion doesn't have a scope of personalization that comes under styling. But today we are talking about hyper personalization under fashion, which is maybe a new definition of fashion is evolving as such. But Rajeev, let me also ask you a very basic and a blunt question. What is data to you? How you define data? Because data is something which has been there with us from the time we have been, been part of this earth, because we are leaving data as artworks on the caves. We have been leaving data as burial grounds, saying that this is a data of a death. This is a data of a scripture. This is a data of my religion. This is a data of my king. We are leaving data everywhere. Somebody is putting data in a pictorial form. Somebody is putting data in a 3D format. Somebody is putting data is in a very qualitative manner, that they're just putting a symbol. And then maybe after thousands of years, that symbol has no meaning, but we are still trying to, decipher the data. So today, in this scenario, when we are ultra depending on data, and we are ultra emphasizing on data, what is data to you? I'm not talking about an expert. I'm talking about a human being, right? What data means to you?
Yeah, so any interaction captured, whether it's a human to human interaction or human to animal interaction or human to even inanimate objects, it could be a computer or something, so any interaction captured over a longer period of time is the raw data that you are talking about. But then the question is, how do we convert that data into information into knowledge, and knowledge into wisdom? So that's what the DIKW framework is.
Right.
So data is the raw form, actually, probably not directly useful, but converting data into information, information into knowledge, and knowledge into wisdom is actually what matters. So I would say today in a technology space, we are able to get from data to information and to some extent the knowledge level. I don't think wisdom and all is being generated today, but nevertheless that's a aim where it has to go. So I would say purely a data to me is any form of interaction that happens between two objects. Whether it is an animate or inanimate objects. Which forms the raw aspect of it.
Right. Right. So to you, as you said, the data is a form of information which needs to be deciphered to understand what is the meaning behind that information. Right. And I agree. And I think Shalini also will agree with this particular point. But interestingly, don't you think the data sometimes is also a little bit wider and qualitative, which may have multiple meaning attached to it? For example, I'll give an example of a fashion perfume. Now, how you define that this perfume is for male and this perfume is for female? I mean, unless we see the bottle and unless we see it on someone, and then our nose is trained to understand that this is very feminine perfume and this is very masculine perfume. It's a data, it's an information, but that information is in a very qualitative sense where we cannot define how I tell that this is feminine and this is masculine. Right. So it's exactly what is the the element of fashion. How your t-shirt remains for male at certain time becomes for female or a power of female to certain time, and then the same t-shirt becomes unisexual at one time, depending on how you are seeing that data. Right. So in this aspect, do you think that today's data, what we are generating, you will be able to capture that kind of an information in future?
Yeah, future it might be. Today we might not be doing it actually. So if you see today, understanding feelings or other sensing aspects are more complex actually. So probably we are not capturing the data at that level today. Because feelings is something, because there are certain senses which are touch based, touch based or smell based or things like that. So right. I won't say that such data are captured pretty qualitatively today, but that might change over a period of time. But today most of the interactions what we are talking do not involve sensing, smelling and other aspect of it. But I think that will change over a period of time. There is no so today. Most of the time, some jobs like, if you want to understand the quality of coffee, right. There's a human who basically measures it,
The tester.
Yeah. So that is a type of thing which a machine also might be able to do in the future. But nevertheless, today we do have that gap. But to answer your question, absolutely, today, that type of a quality data, we do not get it. But few areas where it is slowly showing up is one is, like if you see the call center data, So when you look at the call center data, people do understand other people's emotions, So right. Someone says, I would like to change my address because my parents passed away, So obviously the systems are behaving or rather empathizing with what has happened there, So they are becoming intelligent enough to empathize and then ensure that what needs to be changed is changed behind the scene. That's a human quality, Empathy is a human quality. Right. But building that into systems is a little more difficult. So whatever raw data that we have collected today are mostly interactions that are happening. But as you said, probably going forward, more of such data will get, the quality data will come into the system per se, actually. That's what I'm thinking,
Yeah, actually, Rajeev, Kaustav was also somewhere, I think, put forth, and it made me think that, as in the world of fashion, various boundaries are being redefined. So you don't have gender-based clothing is being redefined to more gender-blended clothing. Similarly, you don't have, there was a time when seasons were understood. Today with climatic changes, we have seasons merging into one another. So I think what he was saying, that the complexities within the world of fashion are becoming are no longer, I don't want to use the word complexity, but perhaps what we understood this world of fashion in the last 150 years is changing drastically today. You just spoke about how, we've all been sitting in the house, or, work from home is the norm today. And being at home, all of us are wearing a different set of clothes today, so how does data, he was trying to say, pick on these nuances, which right now are not as defined as the last 150 years were defined. So data right now recognizes the last 150 years very well. But how does data going forward, kind of build itself to this new world?
Yeah, see, blurring of boundaries is very common. So if you look at blurring of boundaries, it has happened in many fields. It's not about fashion alone, actually. Blurring of boundaries is happening in a lot of areas where today, simple case is, like if you look at Tesla, they are a car maker, but you will be surprised that they make some of the best chips in the market, So the entire computer vision that they run today is actually probably better than the best controller based companies in the world, actually, because they develop the best chips. So because that's what they use in the car. So blurring of boundaries do happen with that. So that makes it little more harder for prediction, because now the question is, as you said earlier days, if you look at the fashion per se, it is defined by many aspects. Religion played a major role, gender played a major role, your age played a major role, your geographic location played a major role, what festivity you are doing is playing a major role. So there is a lot of change happening in all these aspects, religion, so if you look at religion, a lot of people today do not believe in religion, and there are people who really thinks that, the world is far better place without religion, So to them, they do not have to conform to what they have been told probably when they were during their childhood, Similarly, it's happening to age and so gender equality, even with respect to areas of geography locations also, because migratory patterns are too high now. People are migrating, which was not possible earlier days. 150 years, you will not see 100,000 people moving from one place to another. But today, that is very common. Every year, if you see the migratory pattern of people, it is very huge, which influences the entire fashion on the other side of the spectrum, so I think that makes it little more harder. That's what I am getting a feeling, actually, that blurring of boundaries makes it little more harder, because there might not be any very specific preferences, because today how I behave in India, it's not the same way I behave when I go to US, I rather try to adapt to that place much faster. Even though I might have a local preference, I might adapt to that place much faster, because before going itself, I know what is the preference of that place and stuff like that, So that's how I see. I think, this entire world is defined by VUCA, So volatile, complex, uncertain, and
uncertain and agile.
Yeah. So ambiguous, actually. So A stands for ambiguous. So it's very difficult today. I do not do predictions, because predictions is very difficult in today's world. But what you can do is understand the signals. So understanding a signal is different than predicting, because in a prediction, you are actually picking something. But when you understand a signal, you are telling these are the 40 possibilities, we don't know which one will come up or not, actually. So I would say today, even in fashion, it is not the prediction that we rather require. We need to bring in that signal that we see, going forward, so that we do not get biased by our predictions, predictions can come, they can go wrong, a lot of people have done a lot of predictions and it can go wrong, but a lot of people have got the signals correct, and pandemic was a very classic case. So if you look at many things before the pandemic itself, people knew we are playing with fire, where we manipulate viruses, and if they escape, they can put humanity at a big risk. But nobody thought it will happen, but that possibility existed. So it's not that the possibility did not exist. So I would say in fashion also, that's what we should be really looking at. Look for the signals, and then inform people that so and so signals are present, but we do not know what will become prominent or not,
Right. I think it's a very interesting approach. Also, when we talk about data in our human life, not about AI life, human life, we have gone wrong with data. I was just reading an article, very interesting article. It talks about Pompeii, and it talked about the most celebrated stonified body of two entangled male-female body of Pompeii, and it used to be as a symbol of romance. It's a symbol of love. And then finally, one day they found that it's supposed to be one of the town where prostitutions used to be a big thing. So you actually don't know those bodies, what they were actually. So I mean, data signal, what we used to get at one time can be defined in a different way when the realization happens that the data was actually put forth in a different direction. So in the same context at multiple layers, there's a very interesting approach towards it. What you said, that data can be an enabler, and enabler is something which can give us a signal to understand what's happening around, so that we can remain humble and say that this is happening, and these happenings can be joined together to come out with a bigger information clue as such. In the same context, let me also ask you, what do you see happening in this industry in a broader term of your understanding with data? What do you see around you happening something interesting in this industry utilizing data?
In the fashion industry?
Need not be fashion industry. It can be any industry around.
Yeah.
Broader.
Okay.
Yeah, broader.
Yeah. So obviously, one of the pattern I see is actually moving from digital or physical to basically like more like digital actually. So it's a big trend actually, because if you really see, we have always understood our life using physical things, be it currency or anything for that matter. So digital is not something many of us get it, whether be it art, whether it is currency or any form of or metaverse or anything that we are talking. We are slowly moving away from the digital space into physical space into digital space, And I don't know whether everybody can adapt, because if you look at humans, there are different levels of human adaptation,
Right.
So my parents still use the regular phones, They do not use cell phones because it's much more harder for them. They need the button to press,
My mother uses a cell phone just like a landline. So she has a small book with all the numbers, and she will open that and she will dial that. She cannot read the phone dial book.
Absolutely.
So I think, so generations. Yeah, go ahead, please.
Yeah. So that digital to physical to digital is something which we should watch out for, because we do not know how the behavior changes to people, because today in the digital spaces, influencers are also very high actually, because you can get very much influenced by a group that you are part of. You are in the wrong group, you could get wrongly influenced also, So I would say that is the biggest change I see today, which fashion industry has to deal with, moving from that physical to digital. Because if you see, we all went to stores. But today we are talking about fashion where, I want to try out a cloth without being in a store, or I want to try out something without being or having access to that material that I want to purchase or the product that I want to purchase,
Right.
And today technology is enabling that actually. It is not perfect, but that is where it is heading towards, where
it's telling you,
it
is telling you to try your avatar trying out different dresses without really needing to spend money on it.
Absolutely. You do not waste the time trying it out 100 things, today you can try it out. So if you look at specs industries, they probably started with this long back actually. Right. I don't think they are anytime new actually. So you could try different specs on your face to see how it well suited, and now that is getting extended to all other stuffs, be it dress, shoes, all other aspects of it. It's getting in that. I think that's a big change, because that is also, if you look at that, we are moving from physical to digital. because that's what they used to tell, basically brick and mortar to click and mortar, So brick and mortar is talking about your store. Now click and mortar is talking about, sitting at home and just using your computer to do that. That is one area where I think is that. And then people who are not creative enough using technology to basically create, be it arts or any other forms, because creative was actually, if you look at the physical world, creative was limited to a set of people actually. Not everybody had an equal advantage when it comes to physical world when it is creative, but in a virtual world or a digital world, actually others can also play. Because see, if you are playing a soccer in a ground, you have to be physically fit to play that soccer, But the same soccer, if you play in a virtual world, a kid can come and beat you like, in no time,
Very interesting, Rajeev. So then the whole world of fashion has ruled by virtue of differentiation, of creating that differentiation of who can perhaps have it, and those who cannot. So what will this democratization lead to when all of us can actually access that which is? So what would uniqueness mean in that sense?
Yeah, see, uniqueness means, again, it is still about creating stuffs which others like, So that uniqueness has to be there. But I don't know, that digital bringing in more democratization will allow more people to come in. So I am assuming the competition will be a little heavy. That's what my understanding is. Earlier, like if you had 1,000 people to compete against building a product, probably next time when you come, you might have 10,000 people. Probably out of that, 9,000 might be coming with the digital capabilities they have, So competition wise, it's actually today possible, because the reason is, one way it's good also. If you look at that today, many people basically understand fashion, but they do not work in that field. So some platforms allow them to create what they like sitting at home, So that creativity from different people who had the capability but never tried out is coming out now, which was not possible in a physical world actually. In a physical world, you have to create something, you have to go sell it somewhere, and stuff like that. But today, that's where, like, you see, non-fungible tokens and all now coming up, and not everybody who creates non-fungible tokens and stuff are really very creative per se, rather they use digital mediums to create that stuff actually. So I think it's giving a actually opportunity for some of the people to do that, especially if a lot of ladies who are at home, probably being housewives and stuff, they have a lot of talent actually with them, and today,
so access to opportunities.
Absolutely. It gives a lot of access to opportunities for a market which we have not tried. Actually, I saw this first time when I was doing data science, probably 7 to 8 years back. Because one trend I noticed was that sometimes some areas problems are not solved by people with that domain knowledge, because there were competitions in areas like molecular biology and stuff. And strangely enough, people who won the competition actually were not from molecular biology itself, So the technology gave a little more level playing field for such people to compete, And I am assuming that same thing will happen in fashion also,
Right.
You have a larger market. You have a larger market to tap into,
I have a millennial and a Gen Z in my house. So I was being told about a gaming through which you get into, through that gaming, you have a city where you move into the theater and you go and sit in the theater and you watch an actual movie through that. So I had a simple question that, I can watch an actual movie simply by going on, but they said that's not fun. The fun is actually going into the game and through that game, going into the theater to watch the actual movie. I was like, right. So that's the metaverse we're talking about. So creating experiences.
Interesting. So Rajeev, I have a question, which is almost, let me be a devil's advocate. So you have been emphasizing, and I think that's a very big trend you talked about, digitization of the world. but there was an article which got published. I think it was published in Economic Times. It says that 75.8% elderly in India claims that the gap of the generation has increased rapidly during the COVID-19 due to the digitization. So they claims that they are not digitized enough to access all the facilities that the other generations are having it. I mean, do you think this is going to impact our country, because our country is going to be one of the largest chunk of elderly by 2030, and that chunk is going to have money, but they may not be able to do things because everything is now gone digital, right? From the payment mode to buying mode to everything. So do you think it's going to impact our business as such? Because they are the one who has money. Gen Z may not have money. So we are actually taking one set of people out from the business because they don't know how to pay them. I mean, and I have seen them in the market because they struggles to do a phone pay or struggles to use, that kind of a contactless transaction. So I see that can create an impact in our business. Do you think it is going to really create an impact?
Yeah, I'm sure that digital literacy has its own impact, So digital literacy might, basically, as you said, the problem is that the person has a wealth, but he doesn't know how to spend it actually, probably because he is not digitally literate. So this digital literacy is becoming a big problem, because that is because the rate of change outside is very fast. Because even we will get outdated if we do not keep up to date, So just to give you an example, I do not use Google Pay, but today even small vendors do use that. So that way, if you look at that, it has nothing to do with your education per se. A lot of educated people do not use any of these things actually. Probably that digital literacy is a much more complex problem. But whereas I go to a vendor, he has phone pay, everything in his small shop, so he has adapted, but whereas we have not adapted, So right. That way we are actually digitally illiterate compared to him actually.
Right.
So because for his survival, that digital literacy is very important. But to answer your question, yes, a large portion of senior citizens and others unable to adapt actually might be impacting many industries, including food, food delivery and all. If my parents know how to deliver, how to basically order it, they would probably one day, if they are not feeling well, they would not take the pain of cooking, rather they would order it. But they do not have that flexibility to do it. But luckily, one advantage that we have is that if they call us today, we can order it on behalf of them, So that way we can bridge digital literacy to some extent, but we can't still do to that great extent. I think a lot of business is lost, as you said, because of that. Probably digital literacy per se, I don't know. There is no way that government can intervene here actually, How do you keep track of people who are going behind and doing that? Because a lot of us still use check, I myself use check, but if you really see, check is not a very common medium of transaction actually anymore, but we still carry it and we use it. But I believe that digital literacy needs to be addressed, and education is the only way possible actually, and it has nothing to do with your degree or the stuff, because I have seen very people with no educational background adapting to that digital change much faster than us, they use the cell phone, they use every feature in the cell phone, to apply that, and that's what you see. That yes, to answer your question, yes, we will lose some business because of that,
right?
And it's accelerating also, because earlier days, if you see, it took 40 years for a technology to move. Now it has become almost like 5 years we are changing, every 5 years or 4 years we have a major shift that we are noticing. So adapting is important actually.
So there are two more other points I think we'll add. One is that the amount of data what we are generating and the amount of data we are storing, do you think that at one time this will become redundant and we will lose this information in the digital era? Because you can see that most of our photographs which were there in Orkut is gone now. Most of our photographs which are there in Facebook will go after the Meta and Facebook dies, right? Same happens to Instagram. So, but if you see our elder generation, they have an album and the album is still there after 30, 40, 50, 100 years, the album and the typical framed photograph. So that format of data, is it better than the format of data we have now? Because this kind of a digital data will die after maybe a decade. So our decade-old informations are no more available. Do you think it's kind of a process where we try to erase the data what we had earlier? Because after 1.5 years, your phone is redundant, your phone is gone. Almost 2 years, you won't get any parts of that phone. After few years, all the data stored in that phone is also gone, along with the images and informations and the texts what you had. So those informations what you created earlier days with those letters written by the hand and folded and kept lovingly somewhere, which comes out even after 100 years, our generation, then the next few generations, we may not have any data to pursue, next 5,000 years after. So maybe after 5,000 years, we'll only have our boxes, which will have data, which they cannot recover because our data are kept in that situation. Do you think it's going to happen, or there might be some better way of processing the data? Because we are going towards big data and large quantity of data are getting generated. Where these data will be after certain time, because it will be dumped somewhere at certain time, right?
Absolutely, absolutely. So one is there are 2-3 things that happens today. Earlier days we did generate data, but that was limited in quantity. What we stored actually on those times was probably less. But today, if I look at my childhood, I have only like 5 or 6 photos of my childhood actually, probably up to the age of 15, things like that. But if you look at this year of photo, today I have at least like 800 to 1,000 photos for 1 year. So the amount of data has changed. That brings in its own challenges. But people who are digitally literate, as I said, they do back out their data because no platform goes out just like that. So when they go, they give you enough warning that in 6 months we will take it down. So some people, what they do is that they migrate that, but others, what they do is that they do not look into that, and as you said, sooner or later they miss all that data in one shot. So obviously the amount of data will matter. I don't know whether we will ever have a chance to store everything that we generate. I don't think that will happen. But to some extent, it's up to your choice to basically store or rather move whatever you want constantly or back it up, in a digital world actually.
So Rajeev, do you think it is a constant anxiety that we are living in? That at one time our data will be gone and we have to keep on moving our data from JPG to MPG to other formats because the formats are moving. We had, those floppies. Now I have only one floppy saved as memory. And then these data in the floppies are gone. And then it came to CDs. CDs became DVDs. DVDs became pen drive. Pen drive became hard drive. Then it became 8 TB, 10 TB, 20 TB. And then it's a conscious and continuous stress that we are living with all those data, what we gather, that we have to keep on moving these data from one source to other source to other source to keep remembering what all we did. Other than those 5 pictures, don't you think those 5 pictures are better? Because those 5 pictures still gives you the line of memories what you had.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Those 5,000 pictures you gathered. I mean,
and also there's a memory with each instance of that picture.
Yes,
there's a story to it, not
right.
so many stories.
I mean, yes, I think the format changes, the way information's gathering changes. Also, I think there is a requirement of understanding how these data can be saved in long term. That is what I think we are missing. We are changing the technology very fast.
Absolutely.
With this whole fastness, we are moving away from our understanding of how the normal people, the mass, will keep their information. Because
I think there's also another area of digital security, which makes people wary, and ease of use to whatever digital is providing. When you were talking about Google Pay or Phone Pay or whatever, there's always this fear in the segment that you were talking about, Kaustav, that if I press the wrong button, what would happen? Where would my money go? So I think these are all blocks, and I'm sure this comes about with any technology, new technology that we have to deal with at any given point of time. But yes, this to me would always continue to hamper when to that market segment which today has the maximum amount of money to be able to splurge. They're wanting experiences, but they also want it in a format that they are comfortable with. So yes, if you have children, which in our country we have a family always supporting you, so that works, that community helps. But if that's not there, then I don't know whether you will have robots or whether you will have people helping you through that, and whether people would even trust them. That trust factor in our country is largely from people to people, really, right now.
Absolutely,
so I don't know whether
absolutely.
technology can interface that trust right now.
Yeah. So obviously, Kaustav, just to answer from your point of view, I think, see, we have to look both hardware ways and software ways.
Right.
Hardware is evolving very fast. As you said, 20 years back, we have used floppies, which is nobody now talks about, even though it's not that floppies still exist. A lot of data is still stored in floppies, but a consumer like us, do not use it, we have moved on. So I would say that hardware is changing faster than software. So the format still works actually. I know very little formats which has changed over a period of time. You still can open JPEGs which were done long back also now also. So yes, but constantly keeping up to date, and that anxiety of losing is very important. In my case itself, recently one of my hard disk crashed, and that has tons of data in it actually. So the recovery now requires almost like 20,000 rupees to recover that, which I will have to spend because it was a spinning disk, in a spinning disk, if your spindle goes bad, you can no more read that data. You need to replace that spindle with a new spindle, and that's only possible buying a new hard drive, and then you have to move the spindle from one hard drive to other to read that entire data and back it up. And if it is a solid state disk, and if some electronic goes wrong, you might not even be able to recover anything out of it, So backing up the data has become more important now. So do not keep one copy, rather at least keep 3 copies in different forms, so that in case you have a failure, you have another mode to recover from, which never happened in the past. We only had 1 copy, so we always protected that 1 copy, because it was physical.
Yeah. This is a very important point. It brings me to my next question. It says that, do you think that the kind of technological advances and the kind of complexity what we are generating through the technology and the big data, do you think that it's making things more difficult? And then that is where the lifespan of the products are becoming more shorter. For example, I'll just give you an example of the small hinge what we use to open and close the door. That hinge is there for past 300, 400 years. No change in the hinge. Every door is the same hinge. The way the door opens and closes everywhere is almost similar. Similar tools, like for example, so do you think that the future will look towards more simplistic ways of making products and saving data, or more simple data rather than complex data? Because I feel that simple data are more important because it gives us a better understanding of information. Simple data like just saying yes, that's a very simple information, but that information has so much of power because it is a positive node. So I mean, rather than telling a long sentence and then that gives the information passing on. So I think, do you think that the information is going to become more simpler, or do you see the trend is going to become more complex data sets as such? Because data sets, the more complexities, the complexity comes to the way of deciphering it, complexity comes to understand it, and also to protect it and save it. So I mean, it becomes like, you take a medicine and then that creates a side effect. Then you take another medicine to make it better, and then that creates another side effect. So you keep on adding things to safeguard that particular information. So do you think the technology and the data is going to be more low in complexity in future, or do you think it's going to be more complex because the information is becoming much larger and much wider in that sense?
Yeah. So if you look at that today, the information capture is becoming more human to human interactions, So human to human interactions are always complex because we could express something by words. We could express it by the, basically the emphasis on that word, we could do mixing of languages. We could do mixing of language plus emojis. So if you look at the way the information capture is now happening, it has become already very complex. So if you look at a WhatsApp stuff, it has made even technology difficult to understand because at times few things you mix languages and then you put emojis. Now you don't know exactly what expression that you are giving, neither to the other person nor to yourself. So I believe that the entire interactions are becoming more complex from what I see, unless there is a very clear way that we start making it much more simpler. But we are adding more and more parameters into that interaction, making it more complex. So just to give you, so today a lot of things are possible. I could have a voice clip attached to a WhatsApp. Yes, I could have even Malayalam written in English, which makes it little more harder, So I in my answer, I believe I am seeing it going more complex.
Okay. So when you say it's becoming more complex, we can expect that to come in fashion also, because fashion is also a human communication. And I mean, maybe as you said, that fashion is also going to be more complex with multiple dimensions towards it. What do you think, Shalini?
I like that part where Rajeev, you mentioned that even today I can write Malayalam in English, but the thing is, you can also write Malayalam in Malayalam. That possibility also exists. So I also think that one part is that the language is getting complex. So my mind was thinking about exactly this, that if the medium of communication is texting, whether through chat or whatever, then it's a reflection of the language that we're using, to communicate. And if that is getting complex, then it'll have repercussion in different aspect of wherever it is used to express something. But then suddenly, when you spoke about Malayalam, I realized that, yeah, today we have the option of actually getting into a lot of regional language. So this text and this platform, this medium is also ensuring that we are able to go into local languages, to go into local. And that's a possibility I see even in the world of fashion today, that the local flavor, the local essence is what is creating the differentiation in every aspect of communication, of expression. Now, whether it's what you wear, or whether it's a song you're listening to, lyrics you're listening to, a place you go out to eat, the decor there, the food given out to you, the manner in which it is given out to you, or even a car that you may buy, but the way you do up the interiors, it is more to do with what your aesthetic sensibility is. And I think that is where we are rooting ourselves in creating that differentiation in a larger scenario of global language. So that it just struck me when you were talking about it, that one part of the language may be getting complex and taking us to a more common platform. But at another level, it's giving us layers to communicate that differentiation.
Yeah. I think this is a very interesting discussion. And what I gathered from here, you are saying that the technology is a great enabler, and that should be considered as a good enabler to do it. And I think you also said that collaboration is something which will be working better, because then people can collaborate together to work. You are also saying that the technology will become complex because we are looking for a complex communication process as usual. But it's also interesting, the similar process I was reading in this book called Deep Thinking. It is by Gary Kasparov. So he's the first one who lost a chess with a computer. So it's IBM computer. So he wrote a book on his own perspective towards AI. And he said that at the end, he says that AI is a great enabler, and we should leave it to the next generation to think what it should do, because it can be just like a satellite and computer for our generation. Similar way they can utilize in different aspects of understanding products, understanding lives. So he has kept it for the next generation to think what AI can do for them. So I think it's a very good conclusion for the discussion what we had today. So that's large. Shalini, you want to ask something, and or we can close?
No, I've really enjoyed the discussion. Rajeev, we want to thank you for coming on board and sharing your views with us. And the kind of levels and we touched upon between the relationship that data might be having with each one of us, as we move along, whether in our everyday life, whether in the life that is going to create the world of consumption tomorrow, whether it's a world of that will define desire and personalization, my personal desires. That was very interesting. Any words that you would like to leave us with, Rajeev? Any thoughts you would like to leave us with?
Yeah, I would say, so technology is like a knife. It's up to us. What do we want to do with the knife, as Kaustav said, it could be used wrongly also, because I am seeing a lot of patterns where technology is used very wrongly, because especially use of AI for autonomous, weapons, weapon systems and stuff, which to me is putting the entire humanity at danger, actually, which is not good also, actually. So technology as an enabler has advantages if we use it in the right fashion. So it's up to the community to decide, what are the right usages of it. And just like a knife, if you give it to the wrong person, if you give it to a kid, he might do something which can cause major damage to everybody around him or her,
Right.
So that's what I believe.
Yeah, when we study research and we study data in that research, there is a word which everybody uses, that of illusion. So we have that, like you said, data gives us that weapon, whether to create an illusion and use it against, or whether to really understand it, draw insights out of it and create it. Our conversations have been on a positive note there. We would like to believe that, but you're so right to say that there is another side to it.
Absolutely, because I believed that at least 10 or 15 years back, if you ask me, my thought process of technology was very simple. It is beneficial to the humanity. It brings in, probably it brings people more closer, which is happening now. More aspects like reduction in the income inequality and many other aspects, which is not happening, actually, because if you really look at the pandemic today, the people who were rich became richer and the people who were poor became poorer, actually, right. Which is not a good way of use of technology. So we'll have to look at, evaluate, because ultimately we want to ensure that technology brings in a level playing field for everyone. But the question is it really happening, or what should we do to ensure that it happens, because ultimately if it happens only, it's beneficial to the humanity. Otherwise it could actually, some people have called it as existential threat, actually, but we have to be very careful that, because they have taken probably the worst case scenario. It might not be the worst case, but I think that is where I see, I felt always technology should be an enabler in the perspective of bringing, like reducing the differences, irrespective of what difference it is,
Right.
True.
That's what I think.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you so much, Rajeev.
Yeah.
This has been wonderful. Thank you for sharing 1 hour with us on a weekend. Thank you so much. Thank you, Kaustav.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks. Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.